I was reading some stuff this morning by an author, and I think he's a neurologist actually, called Robert Burton. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's his name. I was reading it because his name featured in a video by Halcyon, which is a really great video actually as well, come to think of it. But and that pointed me to Robert Burton's book, which is called something like On Being Certain, which is on my Amazon wish list, but I haven't actually bought yet. But also to eventually found an essay on Salon magazine, which has some, what I think is a kind of potted version of the ideas that he presents in On Being Certain. And I was really taken by that actually. I will buy this book because it looks great. Really. And it reminded me of a number of other things and some concerns that I've been having. One of the things that he talks about, at least in this article in Salon, is he talks about the difference from claiming certainty, and he assumes that claiming certainty, or at least experiencing certainty, and I think in his analysis, certainty he describes as the feeling of knowing, and there's a lot to be said about that, which I haven't got time for right now. But it's very intimately concerned with the idea of knowledge, and possessing knowledge, and having those kinds of relationships to knowledge and knowing. And he contrasts that with believing in quite an interesting way, actually. In a sense, it's a very different, or differently nuanced understanding of believing than the ones I've been dealing with up to this point, I think. Although it does have resonance with some other stuff I've been thinking about in a completely different register. One of the kind of claims he makes in this article in Salon is that, if we could get away from saying that we know things quite so much and start making more reference to believing things, it would perhaps indicate a kind of healthier relationship to the kind of objects of that belief, or the objects of that knowledge, which I think is interesting. He kind of warns that there might be some problems with that. But if you're making kind of scientific empirical claims, and you phrase those in terms of belief, he says, then you are possibly leaving yourselves open to criticism from more fundamentalist elements of your readership, who are not shy about making absolute claims to knowledge and certainty, even including claims to certainty about things that there is no way of having knowledge about. And I think he's really referring to things like creationist beliefs, for example, at that point. But I'm going to talk about this. Oh yeah, what it's putting me in mind? Well, yeah, what it's putting me in mind of is another kind of relationship, or a parallel to the relationship that he's drawing. What he's saying, I think, there is that if I wanted to have a kind of healthier relationship to those concerns, rather than saying, I know there is a dog in this field, I would say, I believe there is a dog in this field. In a sense, it has the same kind of meaning. It makes the same kind of assertion, but in Burton's terms, it doesn't assert that as an item of knowledge with the kind of object status and interpersonal availability status and the fact status that knowledge has. It states it as a possession of mine, as a state of my mind, if you like, a feeling that I have, a feeling of knowing that I have. And I don't really have any great deal of problems with that. But what it puts me in mind of, and this is going to seem like a huge leap into some completely different area, is a kind of language form, or a kind of language discipline, a speaking and a discourse discipline, that I came at through Robert Anton Wilson, who's kind of science fiction author. And I think he got it from Korzybsky through General Semantics, or I'm not absolutely sure on that. And it's a language form, as I say, a language discipline, which I think is called E prime, or English prime. But again, I'm not absolutely sure. And the demarcating feature of that linguistic strategy is that you suppress the verb to be. You suppress the verb to be. So all the parts of that speech, that verb, I am, he is, they are, etc., etc. Those things are suppressed, and different kinds of linguistic strategies are employed to make statements which would otherwise have that word. Sorry, I'm just going to watch these geese fly overhead. Let's see if I can catch them in the video. Gorgeous. So you'd use different strategies. So if I can just refer back to the example I gave a minute ago, in E prime, rather than saying there is a dog in this field, I can't say that because it's got the word is in it, and is part of the verb to be. I would say there seems to be a dog in this field, or more accurately, there seems to me to be a dog in this field. What the idea behind that, I think, is, and I think it's, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems to me it's leaning on quite a serious philosophical tradition to do with problems around the verb to be. I know Wittgenstein had problems with that. I know it features in Hume and quite a philosophical tradition where this idea of being is kind of a metaphysical or transcendent term. It doesn't operate like other verbs. So, and because it's deeply problematic as a term, it could potentially cause problems in discourse and problems in conception if we don't think too much about it and we just use this verb to be, saying things are this and things are that, and he is this and she is that, then the idea is that it could potentially be open up difficult areas for ourselves, or using a metaphysics which, if we were more overt about it, we might be unwilling to subscribe to, and yet we do subscribe to it all the time because it's within our language. So Robert Anton Wilson, out of Korzybsky, says that if we suppress that, different kinds of thought processes take place, different kinds of discourse takes place. And some of the immediate things which are obvious to me from that is if I'm saying, it seems to me there is a dog in this field, one of the first things that does is it puts me in the picture. If I just say, there is a dog in this field, then it's kind of depersonalized. It's a passive voice. I've taken any kind of viewer out of that and made some kind of absolute statement, presumably true not just to all human observers, but kind of metaphysically true in some kind of sense. I'm making that kind of claim. Whereas if I say, there seems to me to be a dog in this field, I'm making a very different kind of assertion. I'm placing the human viewer, my particular being of that human viewer, the human viewer at the center of the picture, with all of the instrumentation, the biases, this kind of sensory modes of engagement, that whole kind of thing is present in that sentence. And it kind of situates it in that position. So I think there is something really interesting about that. To get back to Robert Burton, although he's saying something quite different, or superficially different perhaps, when he's making this distinction between knowledge and belief, I think he's saying the same kind of thing. Because if he's saying that certainty is the feeling of knowing, he's locating knowing, the feeling of knowing, within the body of the individual. Feelings are very closely associated with individuals, for reasons I don't think I've got time to talk about right now. And so, by acknowledging that, taking the appropriate kind of linguistic measures to bring that to the fore by using terms like belief, again, I think he's doing the same kinds of maneuvers that E prime does in relation to the avoidance of a metaphysical absolute. Maybe. Not really sure I've got that really. Never mind.